I would like to know if you could share any policies that you're passionate about that you think we need to reform. Um, which ones of those are crucial right now at this moment as a publicly funded institution, right? How do we rally around them? I want to add that piece in there.
So there's a lot in terms of policy, and it almost is overwhelming because when asked that question, you have to try to figure out like which thing am I going to talk about today to keep from speaking the entire time of the panel. There's so much that people are presenting, and that's kind of what frustrates me about the defund police movement is that there's so much that people can pull from what is coming from the ground right now to actually get things done, and instead we're caught up in a conversation that is actually not beneficial to any of us. But I will say that the George Floyd Act, I think, needs to be passed, right? It has within the package a lot of things that are important. A ban on no-knock warrants. That's really super important in terms of what happened to Breonna Taylor. And then now I just, looking at my Instagram page, I see that there are over 1 million people who have watched the video of a woman who over a year ago, Miss Young in Chicago, was terrorized by police who used a battery ram to go into her house to find somebody who was actually next door, a social worker. Exactly. And so, God is amazing. I don't know who, well, Reverend Mitchell
Yes.
is here. And I'm not a preacher, but
This is a
God is
God
amazing.
fearing organization. I'm like,
Oh, okay. Well, I'm definitely in the right place. You know, you have the case of Breonna Taylor, and people say, well, her ex-boyfriend, he was into illegal activity, and and Kenny Walker, her new boyfriend, he shot his gun, which is actually legal in the state of Kentucky. Everybody has a gun. Everywhere you go, people have guns, and you have the right to fire a warning shot. And so that's what he actually did. And they come up with these excuses about why it happened to her, right? And well, the police, it's unfortunate. Everyone says, oh, it's unfortunate, but it's not their fault. Okay, well, now it happened to Miss Young. Okay, so you can't say Miss Young was with somebody who was a boyfriend who was a drug dealer or anything. It tells you there's something wrong with the system, period. So something like ending no-knock warrants is extremely important because only in our communities are people running through the door like wild animals, killing our women. They didn't kill Miss Young, but they could have, right? They absolutely could have. And trying to get individual states to pass that legislation is difficult. People are doing it. It just happened in Virginia, where they have passed a ban on no-knock warrants. They're working on it in New York, and other states are absolute states and cities are working on it. However, we need a ban from a federal level so that across the nation, people know that if they do continue no-knock warrants, they're going to have issues with their funding that comes down from the federal government. Other things that are in that package, like qualified immunity, ending that, giving us the ability to actually sue police officers directly. And it's so crazy because they will tell you that there's only a few bad apples. That's what they'll say to you. That you'll hear the unions, the PBA, and all of these individuals, that anybody who's trying to defend the police, mayors, and otherwise, saying our police department is not inherently racist. It's just a few bad apples. And then we say, okay, cool, let us sue the few bad apples. And they say, no, we can't do that. Well, which one do you? Is it the bad? A few bad? Exactly. Where are because it's all just 3-card Molly. They're shifting the cards around to keep you from actually finding the thing that creates accountability. And so those are just 2 things in that package, and there's much, much more. And I suggest that people, if you don't know, the George Floyd Act is actually on Mitch McConnell's desk, and he's blocking it, doesn't want to pass the bill. And that's why being here in Georgia is so important to get out the vote, because we need to actually confirm 2 to get two other senators in office who actually believe in our mission and to some degree align with our agenda so we can actually get that bill passed and others. But the last thing, and I hope that this sort of kicks off to Reverend Mitchell and gives him the ability to speak deeply about this. And I work very closely with a young woman in New York, Erica Ford, who I know is watching. She's not that old. Oh, there she goes there on in the comments. She's not that young. She's older than me. She's my elder, but I work very close with Erica, and for years we've been talking about making sure there is a federal mandate that says that gun violence is a public health crisis in our communities, so that we can get the type of resources necessary to deal with all the challenges. Because if you ask any one of us who actually works in the community, we can already see who the shooters are going to be before, as they are growing up, based upon the challenges that they're facing. They have a family member who has alcoholism or drug addiction issues that's not being addressed. Unless you are addicted to opioids and very fair skin, nobody's really trying to help you with your drug addiction problem. They're trying to lock you up. And once you lock up the parent who has the disease of addiction, we know what that causes for the child. It's the same cycle. I don't have to explain it to you all. It's the same cycle over and over again. You're not getting properly educated. You're living in food deserts. Where we were in Kentucky, when we lived in Louisville, Kentucky, there's one supermarket, one Kroger. And when the uprising happened and people were protesting, Kroger shut down and people couldn't get fresh food. So they were using corner stores, and which there are not many, if you know anything about, area down south, or, some people say Kentucky is not really down south. I don't know what you call it. They're kind of southern, but not. But anyway, I digress. But, but those food deserts, these are things that create situations where young people end up with guns in their hands because they either don't have the resources or don't have things to do to keep them busy and to keep them growing and thinking. And so I think that declaring gun violence in America as a public health crisis is something that we should all be pushing for. And I know that it's work that Reverend Mitchell, Erica Ford, and others have been leading.